You're listening to Sustainably Geeky, episode 33. I'm your host, Jennifer, and today I sat down with Hannah and Ben, organizers with the Students for International Divestment Day program. In this episode, we talk about what divestment is and how you can get involved in divesting your own money or in pressuring other organizations to do so. Thanks for listening, and let's geek out.
You're listening to Sustainably Geeky, the podcast for everyday environmentalists.
So today I am joined by Hannah Reynolds, who is an organizer with Divest Princeton, and Ben Dziobek, president of the Environmental Club at Stockton University. They reached out to me about being on the show to talk about their organization and the work that they're doing. So Hannah, do you want to start us out and kind of talk about Divest Princeton and how you got started and why?
Yeah, so I'm with Divest Princeton. We've done a lot of work pushing Princeton University to divest from fossil fuels and dissociate from companies like ExxonMobil and BP, where they get a lot of their funding for environmental research and energy research. And I kind of started the Students for International Divestment Day was an effort that was put on October 24th. And it was an 8-hour-long virtual climate strike type thing with a lot of different, like hundreds of groups across the country and world. And we had like 8 hours of different speakers, and it was really great. But so I worked on that with Ben. But yeah, so I've gotten involved with the divestment movement because, you know, Princeton has $26 billion and of an endowment, and it's heavily invested in fossil fuels. And they do a lot of work with, you know, notorious fossil fuel companies that are like fueling the climate crisis. And so I think that one way that you can really make a difference is through money. So whether it's the institutions that are divesting or personally you're divesting, things like that, public pension funds, that's like a way to make a really tangible difference.
Yeah, that's really a great cause to get behind, and like you said, money talks. So hopefully, you know, more and more people will start doing this so that they'll feel the impact. Ben, why don't you talk about, I guess, your journey and how you ended up helping with this cause as well?
Yeah, so Hannah reached out to us, I believe, on our Instagram, and I was the one who read the message. And I was really excited about the entire idea of this, especially because it is student focused and student organized entirely. But we're not Princeton, definitely. We don't have as much money as Princeton does in our at our school. But what Stockton does have is the name of New Jersey's Green University. And I think it was really important to hold them accountable to that because they are making partnerships in Atlantic City with South Jersey Natural Gas and all these other things that just doesn't add up to that name. So getting students involved in the divestment movement is critical, especially at this time where we're at with climate change.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like you guys are building a movement. Is this part of a bigger movement that you're seeing among colleges and universities across the country?
Yeah, we were very connected with Yale and Harvard and different groups, tons of different, you know, public and private universities across the country. A lot of people in Canada have a really big divestment movement there. And you can also see it in, like, recently New York City divested, and I'm working with New Jersey to divest New Jersey to divest the public pension fund. So it's kind of all over the place. I think it's growing. It really started with Bill McKibben and Naomi Klein with 350.org. And they really started this movement a couple decades ago, but now it's really growing.
That's great to hear. For our listeners who aren't familiar with the term divestment, you've kind of touched on what that means, you know, pulling out of fossil fuels, but can you go into a little more detail? as to, you know, how, I guess, your average person could do that and or business?
Yeah, so it's, you know, sometimes it's really hard. Like with Princeton, there's not a lot of clarity and transparency about where their money is invested. But
Don't worry, not just Princeton.
but yeah, there's a lot you can do to, there are resources for personally, like, you know, fossilfreefunds.org has a really good resource that like you can look up any stock that or like mutual fund that you have, and it will tell you like it will give you like a score, like a grade of how much it's invested in fossil fuels, and also like things like deforestation. They talk about things like that, so it's really really useful, and that's what I've done personally. And then there's also for universities or for you know, businesses, things like that. There are ways to like, you know, whoever you're working with, like your financial advisors and stuff. There's ESG investing, which is like socially responsible funds that, so those like kind of align with certain social things that people care about. So that's a really good way to kind of explore some of those options. And I think honestly, one thing that's really good to invest in is green energy, especially as we go into this new presidency. And there's such an ambitious climate plan and a lot of money hopefully going into green energy. So, and that's like a really good, well-performing industry right now.
And I think that this whole divestment thing doesn't only have to be for people who own stocks, because we know a large majority of America don't. So your money that you're putting into savings accounts and whatever is being used for those financial institutions to spend and invest by themselves. So switching to B Corp certified banks, off the top of my head, I think that it's one's name is Aspirations. But that's another way that you can personally do it if you're not invested in the stock market directly.
Yeah, that's a good point. Also, like Chase Bank is like one of the worst fuelers of the climate crisis. Like they have
Literally
a lot of
every major bank is horrible when you really take a look at it.
money.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, and it makes it difficult, I think, when a lot of people have so much, you know, saved or invested in some of these banks that, you know, it might be a big decision, but little by little, I think it can make a difference. And I know I need to look at some of my banks and do a little more research personally. I have looked at howtodivest.org, I think is the website that lists banks that were invested in the DAPL pipeline. And I know that there's probably a bunch of others, like you mentioned, to look into that. So I guess we would challenge our listeners to be more aware of where their money's going, and not just their own, you know, money that they're saving, but probably money that they're spending at certain businesses too, right?
Yeah, definitely. One thing that is pretty big that's happening, especially in the youth climate movement, is kind of pushing for different boycotting of different really egregious, you know, companies and stuff. So like Shell and Exxon, especially right now, I'm hearing a lot about that. And it's hard because like, you know, Exxon's everywhere where I live. It's hard to find very many other options, but like kind of little by little, both the bottom up and top down, hopefully there is change coming.
And something to recognize about the entire environmental movement, and specifically the divestment movement, it's kind of a privileged thing to have the ability to do these things. Like Hannah was saying, it is really difficult when you're first starting out and whatnot. But it's something that we really need to take a look at because money speaks.
Mm-hmm.
I think one other thing just to add is that, you know, it can be really difficult to do the personal divestment. It's like great to do if you can. But like one way that like if you have attended a university that hasn't divested yet, starting or working on a divestment campaign there is a really good way to kind of act locally and make a bigger impact than just yourself.
They love listening to alumni and not the students that are actually there.
So are there universities out there that have totally divested, or?
Yeah, so Cornell, Brown, the UC schools, a lot of different schools have recently, Oxford and Cambridge, I think. So a lot of different schools have divested. It's really hard to see, like, you know, if they've completely done it yet, because it's a lot of these are more recent, but they have announced plans at least too.
Yeah, Cambridge was like a week before the actual event, and we got all hyped up about that. But a lot of these are really just, hey, we're going to do it. But I don't think many of them have actually 100% completed the transition.
Yeah.
Just one other thing that is kind of interesting is that so Brown divested recently, and actually, like, I think they've already gotten rid of like 90% of their stocks or something like that. But they were like the best performing out of all of the Ivy League institutions with their endowment this year. So that just kind of goes to show that it's not like sacrificing the financial benefit of investing in fossil fuels.
Yeah, that you can actually make a little, money, and you're not just throwing the traditional money away, I guess. That's something that you have to create demand for. So the more people that do it, the better it's going to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I've written a few papers on this whole thing recently, especially with where the money is going and where the profits are. It's not in fossil fuels anymore. Sorry. The jobs are not in fossil fuels anymore. Our economy isn't transitioning, but we need our institutions, educational and financial, to transition with them. We can't be stuck in the ways of the past. It's simply what it is.
Yeah, green jobs are growing faster than, the traditional fossil fuel jobs, which is great. And a big part of the Green New Deal is, promoting those jobs and trying to transition away from the old ones. So
yeah, especially during the pandemic when so many people have lost jobs.
Right.
Yeah.
It's important.
The pandemic is really showing how fossil fuels don't really serve us very well. Like the demand dropped for fossil fuels, and their stocks and everything are collapsing because the industry is consolidating, just because they're having to shut down wells and all of that. So why are we putting our money into those businesses that aren't doing well when we see the green stocks just going through the roof?
And subsidizing those companies as well.
Yeah. That discussion could go on forever. Why that?
Let's subsidize the green jobs instead of the, oil and gas.
Absolutely.
Right. Hopefully the incoming administration makes that a priority. And if they don't, you know what? Hannah and I are here to make sure there's enough voices that's saying that should be a priority.
Right. Fight the good fight.
Right.
And I think that's going to be a big part of, when we rejoin Paris, reaching those goals, because we don't have much time left. So we really need to, like you said, transition away from fossil fuels into more green energy. And that's going to include things like divesting. So
Definitely.
Yeah. And the transition, it's transition, but we need to make sure that transition is quick. Because if there's anyone from New Jersey listening, look up your county. There's a Washington Post article that you can do that. Almost every county in New Jersey has exceeded the 2 degrees Celsius increase in temperature. New Jersey is an outlier in the United States. You wonder why we don't see snow and all of that stuff here anymore. New Jersey has increased their temperature on average by, I believe, 3.48 degrees Fahrenheit, according to the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. So we're seeing it here in New Jersey. We might not be seeing the waters rise and everything like that, but our weather is being affected, and sooner or later, the beautiful Jersey Shore will be underwater.
Yeah. It kind of creeps up on you. I will say, on a positive note, I heard that New Jersey has it surpassed Texas in, I believe, solar jobs. So point of contention in Texas, because we like to be number one in everything, but I recently heard that. So congratulations, New Jersey, for that.
There we go. We got something on our side over here.
So tell me a little bit more about your organization and the event that you just held. Yeah. I know you kind of touched on it a little, but is this the first year, and how long has it been going on, and what was the result of that?
Yeah, it's the first year. We honestly, I kind of started trying to do something, kind of more local, maybe New Jersey or something, because Princeton's getting kind of, there's a lot of energy around divestment right now, and we're kind of awaiting decisions from our board of trustees and resources committee there. So we were really trying to kind of build more energy and kind of build a coalition of people working on these issues. So we had everyone from people in the Sunrise Movement, Extinction Rebellion, to divestment movements, to all sorts of different things, mostly very young people. And we kind of just collaborated with a bunch of different groups and kind of worked on finding different speakers. We had so many different speakers, just such a range, people working on, public pension funds, people like State Senator Zach Walz from Iowa. We had university professors. We had young climate activists from all over the place, people running for Congress right now. It was just such a range of people and experiences. And I think that was really powerful because, it's showing that even though I don't know, even a year ago at Princeton, divestment was kind of a fringe idea that people didn't really know that much about. And now it's something that's so widely supported. Yeah.
It's really crazy how the whole event grew, because when I joined, it was hey, Rutgers, New Jersey, some high schools around Princeton, and some other colleges. And then out of nowhere, we were having Zooms with people from Argentina and Canada. And it was a beautiful just mesh of young people getting to work on something that they really care about. And I thought that was absolutely terrific.
Yeah, it seems like when people start to have these ideas, they pop up all over the world or the country, and it is really neat how they can gain momentum like that all of a sudden, it seems like, but it's been building for a long time.
Yeah, definitely.
So what advice, I guess, would you offer for someone in a similar situation that's maybe a student wanting to start an organization like this?
Yeah, I would say just kind of start local, and then kind of, talk to people and then just keep reaching out to whoever, because people, I think, are really receptive to just people who want to make a difference. And, it just starts by one person at a time, kind of getting them on board with what you're doing. And I think, especially with the climate movement, there's just so many people kind of, disjointed organizations and efforts and stuff going on, and having these united fronts and organizing together is really powerful, because it is so easy to be kind of divided and not have as much lobbying power, and our voices aren't as loud when they're not together. Even when I was organizing this event, there was sometimes there was a bit of conflict over oh, this doesn't seem like there was just like conflict if it was like too radical or not radical enough and things like that. And so there's like even like on the like, you know, the like spectrum of maybe like the left leaning like climate focused type people, there's such like a range of people with different ideas. And I think that it's really easy to let like ideology kind of blind us to the reality that we're facing this existential threat, and that it's really, really important to like be working together. So just like reaching out to whoever you can and everyone you can is really important.
Yeah, there's power in
Yeah.
numbers.
Like literally, it's, you got to start somewhere. So let's start. Let's not make it a big debate about what it is right now, because we can change the direction of where we're going. I've started many like organizations by myself from the beginning, just like Hannah did with this, and just have confidence, reach out to a bunch of people, be ready for people to not accept you right away, you know, or be receptive, but you'll find your people to help you out, and you'll get there, don't worry.
Yeah, that's a great point. We've got to start somewhere. So even if it's not as quote unquote radical as people would like, you can't always start with that. You've got to build up to that and gain support for the basics and then kind of move into it. I think we would all like to see faster, more extreme progress being made, but we have to be realistic too and work within the constraints that we're, you know, in.
Definitely.
Well, is there anything else you guys would add that we haven't already talked about with regards to divestment or your organizations or?
Definitely, you can go ahead and watch the whole 8-hour program on YouTube. I believe it's still up there on the Princeton divestment page, right?
It's called the Princeton Environmental Activism Coalition.
All right, well,
and
there you go.
It's called Students for International Divestment Day.
Yeah.
Okay.
And 8 hours is not, when you see the speakers that are there, 8 hours is not too much. It went by like a breeze for me because it was just so informative and wonderful.
Yeah, and I imagine you could break it up too if you can't sit for 8 hours, kind of listen to one or two at a time. Who were your favorites, or did you just love them all? I know you don't want to pick favorites probably.
We're gonna get some angry emails.
What?
We're gonna get some angry emails about us picking favorites now.
Well, I guess I should say, who were some of the more notable speakers that stuck out in your mind? How about that?
I think Bill McKibben was a big one. He was great. State Senator Zach Walz, who is not like really big in the climate world, but like he was a very good speaker, just like very inspirational. And I like, there were just so many great speakers, honestly. They were all really good.
Well, kudos for getting all those folks lined up. Sorry, Ben.
Yeah. No, I think Zach Walz was what we were talking about before about like starting to organize. His presentation was really on that. And that it was a ridiculously great presentation that he did. And go him. He's now the Democratic Party leader in Iowa, in their Senate, I believe. He just got chosen for that. But I forget the other professor that we had on. He worked a lot in the apartheid in South Africa.
Rob Nixon, yeah. He's
my gosh. That presentation, I was just entranced by him. And all the work he's done, and just he so intelligent. You can't pick out any of these because they were really all terrific.
Yeah, I wasn't able to watch it live, so I need to go back definitely and watch that and pick up some inspiring messages from these folks. Sounds like.
Okay. Yeah.
Are there any other resources you would share with our listeners if they want to learn more about this movement or ways they can help?
Yeah, I can send you a link to a Google Doc that we have with like all of the speakers and agenda. And it also has like a lot of different ways that people can get involved in, and they're all like related to each different speaker. So that's like a really good way. And it's all different things in the climate movement, which is really cool.
Okay. Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, we did a great job on creating a large list of action items for anyone listening. But always want to say, join your local movement. You don't have to be Hannah and really just spend your entire life trying to do this. She was spending hours and hours and hours every day. You can do your little piece and you can help the movement. And that goes with everything.
Well, yeah, that's great. And like I said, we'll link to that in the show notes and pull out the resources that you're going to share with us. I know that I've learned a lot, and really appreciate you guys coming on and talking about all this. And if you don't have anything else, let us know how we can find you online and support your work.
Yeah, I can send my information. I also write like a lot about divestment for our school newspaper and other outlets, so I can link to that too.
Okay. And your organization is on all the social media?
Yeah, we are. So
that's Students for Sustainable, or for International Divestment Day, right? There's a page for that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There's an Instagram that's that. Yeah.
And Ben, do you guys have a social media presence as well?
Yeah, the Stockton Environmental Club has their Stockton Environmental Club on Instagram. We're really just on Instagram, and you should follow Hannah and I on Instagram too, or on Twitter. Just maybe we can grow our little local circle here.
Yeah.
Just our names, probably. Yeah. Just support everyone you can. That's all I gotta say.
Okay. Yeah, I will, like I said, link to y'all and your pages in our show notes. And if anyone is interested in getting involved, you can contact them through those outlets. And I'm sure they'd love to help you start a chapter at your organization or university as well.
Definitely.
So thank you guys so much for what you do and for being on the show. This has been a very informative talk. If you are listening for the first time or you haven't already, please like us on social media. Sustainably Geeky is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And wherever you listen to podcasts, please rate us and leave a review if you're able. We really appreciate that. You can find me on social media at Het's Gonna Be Me. And if you ever have any topic suggestions, or you know of someone that would make a great speaker, please let us know. Thank you guys for listening, and have a great rest of your day.